Hey guys, it's Jen from the Geek Forge, and we're trying another live broadcast. This time we're using Google Hangouts. So if you guys are watching and you have questions, please ask. Today I'm going to be working on the cape for the Wraith costume, and it's not terribly exciting. So, but some of you guys have asked how we do things, so we're going to show you. And this is Shadow. He likes to come and sit on projects as I'm working on them. So we'll probably be tossing him off a couple of times. You can see we're in our beautiful, spacious kitchen, mostly because the lighting is the best. Okay, thank you. So what I'm doing is we put the picture of the pattern we used up on our Facebook page. And it's the pattern that we like to use for all our capes. It's a Batman cape pattern that we did not come up with. We found it on the superhero costuming forum a couple of years ago, and it's really nice full cape coverage that gives you, it's a nice Batman flare-up kind of cape, and we found it hangs real nice, and you can take panels out to make it larger or smaller as you need it. So there's a 6-panel version, and that's the one that we use. There's a 9-panel version, or rather, it's 8 or 9, where it closes in the front. We're not doing any front close capes today, so we're going to use the 6-panel version instead. And last time I did one, I actually only used 5 panels. So I'm going to go ahead and make 6, but I'm very small, so I don't need all that material typically. So we'll see how that goes. All right. So what we did last night was I cut blocks that are the widest width. And this is actually folded in half. The measurement for the radius is as tall as you are. It's basically your height minus about 11 inches so that it goes to the floor. If you wanted something shorter, obviously you'd want to make it less. So we cut 6 blocks of the purple. This is the lightweight gabardine that we like to use because it drapes real nice. See, very cool lines, perfect for catching the wind. And then we're going to try using some lining. The Wraith cape is purple on the outside and a reddish color on the inside, but 2 layers of gabardine is going to be really heavy and it's going to not do what we want it to do. So I picked up some very sheer red material, and when I put it on top of the purple, it makes it a little bit closer to the actual red color we were looking for without adding a whole lot of extra weight to it. So the plan is to basically cut 2 capes and make a lining. I'm going to serge the lining pieces together, and then I'll stitch them all together. So that's my plan. That's what we're doing today. So speak up if you have any questions. If not, it's just going to be a video of me cutting triangles. So there you go. Also enjoy Kirby Crackle if you can hear them. So what I'm doing, in case you're wondering, is I'm going to take my piece, it's going to be the full length, and I'm folding it in half widthwise because I need to cut it in a triangle. This is my map. Shadow likes math. So I cut each panel 35 inches wide, so that's the bottom of the triangle, and it's going to be 50 inches to the top of the triangle. And since there are 50 inches on both sides, I can make one cut and have an equal sized triangle and not have to worry about if I get the measurements right every time. Thank you. And there you go. There's our first triangle. Excuse me. Yes, I know. So I'm doing the same thing that I was doing on the purple fabric, which is to cut this in another triangle. Shadow definitely like this fabric. Now, it doesn't have to be super perfect because you're going to have so much material by the end of it that your cape is going to be really big and full, even if your lines aren't really straight. So this is not for the perfectionist. If you are a perfectionist, you can take a piece of chalk or a fabric marker and draw your lines beforehand. As I like one of my dad's favorite sayings, this is close enough for government work. So we're just approximating, and there's no magic formula that I use, just some high school geometry. And there is our lining piece. So we're going to rinse and repeat that on 5 more pieces. And like I said, this is not the most exciting video that I've ever done. But if you guys have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, I'm just cutting fabric. Also, my super secret cheat that I have discovered is if you have really good fabric scissors, I like the Fiskars. They look like this. They are multi-hand, so you can use them in your left hand or your right hand without having to have special scissors for those of us who are left-handed. And they're designed for cutting fabric, so they start off super sharp when you get them from the store. And don't let anybody use your fabric scissors for anything but cutting. It's very serious for sewers to keep their scissors very safe. These also are flat along the bottom. So regular scissors, your handle kind of bulbs out. So when you're cutting straight, you can actually cut right on the table, and it raises the fabric less, so you get more accurate cuts. So that's a secret that people might not be telling you. So I will tell you. But what I was going to say was, because they're so sharp and because they're really good for cutting fabric, that you can actually cut multiple layers at one time. So when you're doing something like this, when I'm making ties, I'll cut a bunch out at one time by folding the fabric on top of itself. And then I can cut through 3 or 4 layers instead of having to spend all that time. I hate cutting. It's my least favorite part of sewing. It's possibly everybody's least favorite part of sewing. So if I can cut a bunch of stuff at one time, then I feel like I get things done a lot more quickly, and it saves me time. Also saves me from having to pet the cat for working with big pieces of fabric. So these are all layers of fabric together now, and hopefully we'll be able to cut. And when you do cut these, one thing to mention, when you fold them in half this way, you want to cut towards your fold, because we're going to use the unfolded pieces. Everything else is scrap. For this project, we want to save the scrap because we're going to be making a collar later. Now, because these aren't cut all exactly the same size, I'm going to be using, see, this one is smaller, so I'm going to use that as my base for where I'm going to start the triangle to cut, so that I don't miss anything. Other than that, it's just cutting fabric. Something I learned from my art classes was to always look To draw a straight line, you would look where your line is going instead of where it is. And it's actually worked really well for sewing, especially for cutting when I'm not drawing lines on things. If I look at where I want to go, you can get a pretty straight line. Okay, it's pretty straight. And now all our outer cake pieces are cut. So there's a little bit over there. These are more straps. Now, the more difficult one, which is the red piece. It's just more difficult because the fabric is so thin and it's so light, it doesn't have a whole lot of weight to itself, which is what we want, but it makes it difficult for cutting because it doesn't want to stay stuck. I'm sure there's some sort of secret trick, but that one I don't know about. If y'all know, I'd love to hear it. Now, because of my height, I was able to use the width of the fabric. When I bought it, I knew that this fabric was approximately 60 inches wide. Most fabrics come either in 45-inch widths or 60-inch widths. And the side of the package will say on the bolt when you go to the fabric store to look at it, if it says 44/45, that's your 45-inch width. That's for lots of things like broadcloth. If you get the pattern prints with superhero stuff on them, that's going to be 45-inch width for the most part. Your suiting fabrics, stuff like the gabardine, stuff like this chiffon stuff, is typically going to be 60 inches. It has to do with how they weave everything together. So I knew that I am 62 inches tall. I'm 5'2". And I knew that my cape was not going to be as long as I am tall, because you take about 8 to 11 inches off when you're making a cape like this. So I knew that I could turn the fabric long ways to get the piece out. I don't have to worry about patterns. I don't have to worry about nap, which is what you're doing when you're making it. When you're sewing the patterns, you want to make the nap match so it looks like one continuous piece. We don't have to worry about that here because it's all one color. I also don't have to worry about the fabric grain because I'm not doing anything special with it. So if you're sewing spandex and you get the spandex that's the two-way stretch, you have to make sure that you're sewing the stretch the right way, or when you go to put it on, you're going to pop all your stitches and it's going to be too small because it didn't stretch right. So with this, because I don't have to worry about the stretch, I don't have to worry about if there's a pattern on it, that I could just use the width of the fabric to my advantage. And so I only had to buy 6 yards of material instead of 8 or 9 yards. If you are a tall person, then you're not going to necessarily be able to get away with it. Although, I guess as long as you're not taller than 71 inches, you could still get away with doing it this way. The other cool thing about being able to work with it that way, being able to go the width of the fabric, is you get the selvaged edge, which is the finished edge that comes from the factory. And that's the, I don't know if y'all can see or not, the little fuzzy ends on here is the selvaged edge of this particular fabric. So I know at least 2 of my edges are straight because they came from the factory that way. So, or at least I assume they're straight. So I'm just checking to make sure everything is as squared up as it can possibly be. Again, we're going to use our favorite motto of close enough for government work. Because while it's lining, I'm not going to try and make it reversible or anything like that. Great. Again, I'm going to find the smallest piece that I can. Now, the other ones I cut off a little bit because it was longer than the 50 inches that I needed. I did not do that for these pieces, partially because I knew it was going to be difficult to do and get them all the same length. Actually, that was the main reason. So, when I put it together, I'm going to have to cut off some of the bottom, which is okay because I was planning on doing that anyway. And there we go. Let's see if that worked. No, maybe not. We got 2. So that's 3. Let's see what I did wrong here. Well, it looks like I didn't totally check things out before I folded it all up. You can probably work with that anyway. So, next step. So I'm going to take a purple piece. I'm going to take one of these red pieces that I kind of messed up with. Well, the width looks good, so we should be able to salvage it. So because I know that I made the red piece longer than the purple, I'm going to match them up at the top, and then I'll stitch them together. And I'll show you guys. Okay, so I'm going to be using my serger. It's a Simplicity serger. I just got it back from the shop, so I'm very excited. You guys can see the front. It's sort of the front. I have a short cord. Sorry about that. So you can use a regular sewing machine for this. I'm planning to use the serger because it's going to make nice even edges for me, and it's going to trim all the extra off as I go. Again, I am not always the best sewer. Don't like to pin things if I can get away with it. So we're going to see how this goes without pinning it. And if it stops working, we'll take it out, we'll pin it, and it'll take longer, but it'll be worth it. So that's all right. So something happened and the serger's not threaded right. You can see me troubleshoot the serger. This is the joys of live broadcast. Right. Let's see if that's it. There we go. The other thing that I should mention is what I'm going to do is stitch up the two long sides. Then we're going to be flipping it right side out so that we have nice, even, I say that. Yes, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm still trying to piece it together in my head as to how I'm going to put all the pieces together. Normally, when we make the capes, we only do one-sided capes. So we stitch the pieces, the right sides together, and then it folds out to make a whole piece. But this time, I'm going to want to try and hide the fact that these are stitched together. So I have to think on it for a little while. So you can see, and that's the inside, and it'll be all nice and together. So this should work out. There we go. For some reason, there's supposed to be a Q&A. It says it's disabled, but I did flip over to the group chat. I guess if there are any questions. There we go. There's the first side for the first cake. There's the inside, and there's the outside. And you can kind of see, I don't know if y'all can actually see that or not, but I promise there's a difference between the sheer color and when it goes on top of the purple, that it adds a little bit of purple to it, which makes the red a little more of a purple red, which is what I wanted in the first place. So now I'm going to do the other long side and make sure things are flat. So because this was a weirdly cut red piece, it may not quite fit. It shouldn't be a big deal though. I can do this the easy way. Do it now. So I'm going to put both sides up. Again, it won't really matter which side up we're doing when we put them together. I just want to get the maximum amount of red that I can out of it. So here we go. Here's the one with the lining, and as you can see, we have a little bit of a spot that's not covered. So what we'll probably end up doing is trimming this triangle so that it all fits, but we'll save that for later. We'll see when we put it all together. And I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of them together. Then I'll go back and trim the bottoms off for the red as I'm deciding how I want to put it all together, whether I want to turn it right side out or what. So this is the second piece that I goofed on. So we'll put those together first, and then everything else will be super smooth sailing because then I'll know what I'm doing. So part of the nice thing about working with a serger is it has a little blade right over here that will cut fabric as you sew it. And I will put a plastic bag under the serger to catch all the pieces so I have less of a mess to clean up later. They think they make, or you can make your own little serger pouch to catch the little scraps, but I told you I was going to give you all my secrets, whether they're interesting secrets or not. The other reason that I'm sewing the individual panels together instead of making two capes and then sewing those together at the bottom, a couple of reasons. The first one is that I want all the pieces to be the same size. And when you do it, where you're making two capes, at least the way that I sew, they may not be the same sizes. Another reason is that so they move together, and when you're walking and when you're posing, you don't have the two fabrics moving against each other, and that they look like they're one unit. And I looked at a couple of options, like ironing the two pieces together with some fusible interfacing, or looking at some gabardine that's two-toned. It's basically this sort of thing, that it's two different colors, but that was another instance where the gabardine was going to be too heavy, and even adding the interfusible interfacing was going to make it heavier than I wanted it to be. I want this to be as light as possible, because the problem that we've noticed is that the gabardine looks really good, but it's really heavy. I know, you love the surgeon. And again, this is the second piece where I messed up cutting the lining, so there's a little difference, but I only did it on 2, so the other 3 should be good. I know you guys can't see what I'm doing over here, but if you're wondering, I'm making sure that it's flat from the edge I've already sewn. So I'm using that sewn edge as my anchor point to make sure this is as flat as I can make it. I know it's not going to be perfect, but it will, again, be close enough for government work. You see why you say that all the time. So this one I did not mess up on, and still had a little bit of a problem down here at the bottom. You see how a little of it doesn't quite match. So that's fine. When I start putting things together, we'll figure out if we can fudge those or what needs to happen so that everything fits together like I want it to. But we're over halfway done now. This is my sewing life. It's not nearly as exciting as it looks on TV, if there are sewing things on TV. And you might have just seen the captain walk by in the background. You might hear him barking every now and then. He gets excited when people come within 50 yards of the house. The surgery just came back from the shop, so everything should be in tip-top shape, but this is a machine that sometimes gets a little temperamental, so I always like to check and make sure everything's still in front. If you see me looking weird at things. No. Last one to put together. Then we get to figure out how to put them all together finally and make sure all the pieces fit the way that I want them to, so it looks pretty. We also like to employ the 6-foot rule. which is similar to the 40-foot rule in theater, which means that it doesn't have to look perfect, super close up, because unless someone is right up on you taking pictures of the details of your costume, they're not going to see the little imperfections, and every costume has it. Everybody's got something that's not quite exactly what they wanted. It didn't go together quite right, but it looks good from a distance. And especially since this costume is for me to wear, I am less concerned. If I was making this for somebody else, then I would make this, I'm making this to the best of my ability to begin with, but I would try extra hard to make sure if there were any problems to either fix them as best I could, or to alert the person I'm making the costume for to go, just so you know, this is a thing. So I'm telling future Jen that this might be a thing. Oh no. But we were doing so good too, weren't we? We're having a little malfunction with the serger because it's on with sergers. And gathered up here, so went to get my handy dandy seam ripper. Well, this is a really good one, you guys. Look at that. It's not supposed to look that way. Let's see what happens. I've never seen that on the street. Looks like this thread broke. Again, live broadcasting, sorry. Let's see if I can get away with just rethreading the needle and not having to rethread the entire thing. Slipstream, zombie right. All right. Let's see if that does it. There we go. It's all very exciting now. And since we just started, easy things to do is to cut that gross piece off. Let me try again. There we go. That's much nicer. I'm excited, y'all. Last stitch, and we can move on to the next phase. I am. All right, we got all 6 pieces, 5 pieces cut. Yeah, 5 pieces cut and put together. And turn y'all back this way. We're terribly high tech around here, if you couldn't tell. So the next stage is, I'm gonna look and see. So here's what we've got right now. Outside. So what I have to decide is if I want the black to be showing or not cooking up these zeros, so their interest on now. All right, so I think it looks better. So I'm turning them right side out. And what I'm going to do is put 2 of them next to each other, as I would if I was re-stitching it together, and see what I think about it looks. And this may not be the best way to do this, but it was the way that made sense to me. So. And I think that's what I'm going to do is turn them all right side out. Then I'm going to run an iron and to get a nice crisp seam. And then I'll stitch it together on a regular sewing machine with purple thread on top and red thread on bottom so you can't see it. And then while we're at it, one of the easiest things to do to make something look professional is to cut your threads. A lot of people forget about it, especially when they're first learning. But trim your threads up and it'll make a huge difference just in how things look when they're finished. And in this case, I want to make sure, and these may not end up showing in the ends, but I want to cut off where I started because that black could potentially show through the red, and I don't want there to be any color variation. Now I'm going to cut a neck hole, and I'm also going to make a collar to go in there so those particular pieces may not have ever been seen anyway. But you're already going to see the darker color if you get up real close from the black thread that we used when we stitched it all together. It's Avengers. And next in the glamorous world of sewing, we're gonna iron everything. I know y'all came here to see me cut fabric and iron, right? Now for this particular project, because we are working with that chiffon, that we're going to want to iron it on the gabardine side, because that chiffon could potentially melt, and we don't want that since we just did all that work to put it in there. calm. I'm scared, I'm prepared, you're not the only one, I swear. And I felt this way. But there's a plan. Small takes. And space the same to nothing. Everything I count on, it's never gonna change. Yesterday, I see the call. So this is after ironing. And it doesn't do a whole lot, but it does make it a little bit of a nicer crease. So this is a non-ironed piece. Again, there's not a whole lot of different, but when I go to put it together, if I use the ironing, what ends up happening is the iron piece is on top and the non-iron's on the bottom. You can see the difference in what looks like the lip there. I can control how this goes together. So when I sew the purple sides together, because it'll be my wrong sides, and the red will be the inside, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, Alright, I'm thinking that I might actually serge the pieces together when they're right side out and just use that serge and find a red thread so that I can serge together so that we don't have to deal with that. So I'm going to sign off a little bit early today because I don't have any red thread for the serger. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.